This is The Baseline, discussing the hot button topics of the NBA.
Welcome, everybody. You're tuned to The Baseline. Cali, Warren Shaw, discussing the hot button topics of the NBA. This is our 2016-17 NBA Awards preview. This is the show where we give people what they want. I know. When it comes to our man Jalen Rose and you know Jacoby, they give the people what they want. But we need to give the basketball fans what they want. And that's a discussion on who is planning to take this season's upcoming awards. And it's a great topic to have before the season ends because it gets us motivated to what we're looking forward to for this upcoming season. So to discuss this awesome show that we have on tap, you know I got to roll in my brother from another mother, the big man, Big Kahuna, repping out of Fort Lauderdale, Florida. He does the biggest thing on www.shawsports.net. My man, Mr. Warren Shaw. What's going on, man?
I'm chilling, man. Salute to all the fans, listeners of NBA Baseline. Thanks so much for tuning in. Another great show, as always, on tap, and I can't wait to jump into these awards, man. It's going to be a fun show.
Yeah, man. Listen, we've been doing the previews, obviously. The NBA season is shortly upon us, and I just think it's great because ultimately what this award show allows us to do is profile players, profile guys who are on our radar and we're expecting big things from them. And listen, when it comes to these type of awards, it also acknowledges pretty much what our predictions have been saying all along, that it's their time to shine.
Yeah, man, it's great to look back on these things, especially in late April, and so you know how off or how close you were to getting some of these things right. And with these players, you know, everyone's looking to step up, you know, have a better year than they did a season ago, and that's what it's all about. So we're having a little fun. We hope everybody will engage with us. We've already got some Twitter responses that I'll get into once we start the show too for some of these awards, and I think it's going to be a good time, man.
Most definitely. Listen, we appreciate each and every single person, everyone who's been showing the love and support. We've had some great people on board with the Baseline NBA podcast over the last month or so as we've been rolling out our previews for this upcoming NBA season. Shout outs to the listeners who continually support the Baseline. Be sure to get at my man Shaw at Shaw Sports NBA or get at me at GameFace Lee. The show's Twitter handle at NBA Baseline. Be sure to check us out on all the major platforms. We're available on iTunes, Stitcher Radio, Player FM, Microsoft TuneIn. We're also available on Google Music and available on the Roku channel. And then we're also simulcasted via the Sports Brothers Network. Big shout out to Freeman and Fox, who've been doing their thing covering South Florida sports, but they talk about all kinds of sports, and we give them the discussions regarding the NBA. So be sure to check those guys out on the Twitter at the Sports Brothers and go to the website, thesportsbrothers.com, thesportsbros.com. Listen, before we start getting into this show, we also want to send a big special shout outs to NBA Lead, my man Warren Shaw. He has been a part of the NBA Lead faction, as they are now an upcoming site that is rolling out everything you need to know as well in the NBA and the association. My man Shaw, shout out to you, man. You just recently were on the Hoopers log, breaking down the Atlantic Division. Been getting numerous tweets and follows and responses to your insight and analytics, man. So big shout outs to you. But we always encourage everybody to go to NBALead.com, check out all of the NBA previews that are being rolled out, and catch them throughout the regular season. So now let's go ahead and get right into the heart of the matter. Let's talk about the upcoming NBA Preview Awards. This is brought to you by fanessentials.net. Listen, guys, we want you all to get ready for this upcoming NBA season, and the best way to do that is to get dipped down in the latest in sports gear. So go to fanessentials.net. Prices start at $14.99 and $34.99. But if you go to the checkout counter after you select all of the gear that you're looking to wear and sport and rock throughout the season, we give you 30% off. All you got to do is put Baseline at the checkout. So once again, go to fanessentials.net, select the price that you're willing to take and pay per each month. It's a great idea for gift items for the average and the avid sports fan. Go to that website, use Baseline at the checkout, and you get 30% off your first month. Shaw, when we talk about NBA Preview Awards and we talk about the NBA in general, the first award that I think is always essential, that has to be disseminated out amongst the fan base and everyone else, is clearly it's about the coaches, man. I believe it's about the coaches. Maybe I'm the only crazy lunatic out there. Is it really all about the players?
Well, no, I think you're right. I mean, the players have to do their job, but they have to do the job the coaches set them out and set them forth to do on a regular basis. And when it comes to this upcoming season, I think there's a laundry list of guys who could potentially be in the running for it, especially with teams and coaches in new situations on new teams. And with expectations being a little bit different for each roster, it's kind of hard to determine what the coach of the year should be. Is it the coach who wins the most games that year, or is it the one who does the most with the least? And I always kind of lean towards that. When you look at a guy like Terry Stotts last year in Portland, really, as Tony Jones said on our show too, got robbed of that award because, Steve Kerr and those guys won 74 games. So, I mean, to me, it's always about who does the most with the least. But I think for other people, it's about who gets the most wins.
Well, and I find it interesting because, to your point, there's going to be some really interesting candidates. There's guys that we can certainly look at where I think this is their time, Shaw. I really do. I think with what has happened the last couple of years, and listen, this is to no fault of Steve Kerr, all right? He's not the one who is casting the ballots. He's not, he's not paying anybody, money under the table to get these votes. He's just a coach who's trying to put his team in the best possible position to win an NBA championship. And it just so happens that he's put the Golden State Warriors in that position 2 years in a row. Okay. And Tyronn Lue, listen, even though this guy will gladly, take a NBA championship, rock that championship ring, then worry about being noted, not by his peers or by us as being a coach of the year candidate. By default, these two guys, I think, have canceled themselves out in a running. I think that the consensus now is we really have to start looking at some of these other guys who I think who have to go through the nuances, go through the roster, the planning and the preparation, being able to finagle around the consistent injuries to some of their superstar players. Some of these guys I really think now are going to get some serious considerations because I just don't know if whether or not people are going to buy into saying Tyronn Lue and Steve Kerr, or even Greg Popovich for that matter, are automatically going to be considered as Coach of the Year candidates. I think that their feat to win this award might be a little bit steeper now because of what's happened over the last 2 years.
Yeah, they've almost, as they say, priced themselves out of this right now by victims of their own success in this regard, especially in the case of Lue, who really took over midseason last year, remember, and hasn't had a full term with the Cavaliers as is. So maybe you could say he could still have a chance at that, but Cleveland is probably going to coast through the Eastern Conference for the majority of the season. They'll win 60 games or whatever the case may be, but I don't think it's going to warrant him that Coach of the Year status like how we're thinking. And I think it's really going to be the year of the guys who do the most with least, or the guys who bring some of those teams back that has some talent from a season or a couple of seasons ago and get
Shaw,
them
it would not to interrupt, Shaw, but it would literally have to be like the Cleveland Cavaliers would have to go through what David Blatt went through at the first half of his season as the head coach of the Cavaliers, where they were basically under 500 going almost into the All-Star break, and then literally just dominate the second half of the season if we were to ever consider Tyronn Lue to be considered Coach of the Year, because of the fact that the level of competition in the Eastern Conference is not going to give Tyronn Lue a full chance to display his coaching acumen the way that I think he wants to. This is about managing LeBron James and just making sure that Kyrie Irving and Kevin Love are happy and are continuing to play at a high level and staying healthy than worrying about whether or not this team is going to go through adversity in the Eastern Conference.
Yeah, and again, I don't see that happening at all. Although I do see them not trying as hard throughout the regular season. Unless I'm wrong and they win 70 games or something like that, I don't see how Lue has any chance of winning this award this year. And again, just victims of his own success, by winning the championship. No one's expecting Cleveland to struggle out the gate, and if they do struggle out the gate, then I don't know that he can come back and then win it if they, go on some miraculous run because they're gonna say, well, why did they struggle to begin with? So for me, I'm looking at teams like, Washington Wizards, Scott Brooks in that situation. Can the Wizards get back to a certain level of prominence? Quinn Snyder, does he get the Utah Jazz into the playoffs? Tom Thibodeau in Minnesota, same thing, to get the T-Wolves to compete for a playoff spot. Guys like that are who I'm looking at as potential candidates for this award. David Fizdale in Memphis. All these guys in new situations. Jeff Hornacek with the Knicks. To me, those are the guys who probably have the best chance of winning the award this year.
Yeah, definitely. How about Billy Donovan? I'm thinking about this is, can he channel Russell to play West by North Westbrook? In other words, I think there's so much is going to be made about Terry Stotts and the expectation that the Portland Trail Blazers should win the Northwest Division. And I think it's going to be predicated on the elevated play of their front court. I don't think they'll have a problem with Damian Lillard and CJ McCollum, but if Terry Stotts continues to do the kind of job that he's been doing with this makeshift front court that he's been dealing with for the last 3 years, it's a foregone conclusion that the expectation should be that the Portland Trailblazers should win that division. But if to your point, if Quinn Snyder gets the Jazz to play at a very high level, and if Billy Donovan can get the Russell Westbrook to play at such an MVP level, get the game of Victor Oladipo to play beyond, what he's proven over the last few years already playing as a Magic, and ultimately get this Thunder team to play above and beyond their heads. Listen, he's just coming fresh off of a 55-win season with Kevin Durant. If this team is able to replicate somewhere in the 50s and there isn't that much of a gap between what the other coaches are doing in the NBA, Billy Donovan can seriously be considered that coach of the year.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. It really, really does. If OKC somehow, ends up with the top 4 or 5 seed in the Western Conference, Westbrook is going to be an MVP candidate, which we'll obviously get to a little bit later on. Donovan has an excellent opportunity here, and probably one of the few coaches I think in the situation that had a team last year that will be able to say, okay, they can really hang their hat on this right now. Again, all the guys I mentioned earlier are in new situations. The one guy that I think potentially, and I don't want to use the word sleeper because I think that might be a little bit overused, but a dark horse to some degree on a team that's expected to be successful would be Brad Stevens in the Boston Celtics. Yep. If Boston somehow wins like 55, 54 games, something like that.
It would be very hard pressed. And his resume has spoken that he has been a coach of the year candidate in waiting, basically.
For the last 3 years, he definitely has it. He's garnered a few votes here and there. So if the Celtics were to finish as a top 2 or top 3 seed in the Eastern Conference, then Stevens would obviously get a lot of consideration for that, especially if they top the 50-win margin for me. So as far as dark horses, that's who I have. But I'm going to go ahead and sneak in here, Matt, and I'm going to say Tom Thibodeau is going to win this award with the Minnesota Timberwolves. I think they're going to get to 40+ wins, and that'll be a 15+ win. Sorry, that'll be about a 12 to 13+ win improvement from a season ago. They'll be competing for a seed in the Western Conference, in my opinion. And Thibodeau is just always a guy who I'd love to go with. I think he just has a great work ethic. He's going to get that team to play some defense as well too. Who you got, man?
Oh man, listen, I'm going to have to agree with you. I listen. To me, whoever the coach of the year, I think is going to come out of that Northwest Division. And the one thing that I fear will happen is the Portland Trailblazers may run into a rough spot. They may run into a rough patch. And for all of what Terry Stotts has been able to do, I just wonder if whether or not it's going to be enough. I will say this: if they win the division and wind up being a higher seed, I'm going to put Terry Stotts as being the coach of the year. But there's just something about the Tibbs experience, and he did this already once with the Chicago Bulls, and it's hard to not see where the coaching community and the NBA community holistically would not give it to Tom Tibbs. And I feel like Terry Stotts and maybe even Billy Donovan will once again get shunned for just being in the wrong place around the coach at that wrong time. You know what I'm saying? So that's kind of where I sit with that. I can clearly see Tom Tibbs, and I think it's going to wind up being Tom Tibbs if the Timberwolves do what we think is really achievable, but only by the way that Tom Tibbs can do it. You're tuned to The Baseline. Cal Lee, Warren Shaw, discussing the hot button topics of the NBA as we're giving you our NBA awards preview, as we kind of give you our predictions of who is going to walk away with these essential awards. Let's go ahead and move over to the Defensive Player of the Year award, Shaw. Listen, everybody obviously is going to be looking at the top known dudes. Clearly, Kawhi Leonard, what more could be said? 2-time Defensive Player of the Year. I'm sure people probably question whether or not he was deserving of it this past season, but the numbers don't argue what he means, not to just the San Antonio Spurs, but what he basically means to that position that he plays. He and along with Paul George have quintessentially renamed the criteria that is met to play that position. Because if you ain't scoring 35 points per game at the 2-guard position, you better be making sure that you're dropping 25 and locking down 10 on whoever they're playing. And that's exactly what Kawhi Leonard does. He has he's rejiggled the metrics, so to speak. And guys like Kawhi Leonard, I think, again, are going to be quickly looked at when you're talking about winning Defensive Player of the Year award. But let's not sleep. Big men still get some love too, and even medium big men get some love too. Draymond Green, DeAndre Jordan, very, very closely looked at as well as possible Defensive Player of the Year candidate. Shaw, who else are you looking at that really has an opportunity to step in and make their presence felt as being a Defensive Player of the Year candidate?
Yeah, well, you mentioned the top guys for me too, but I think one that's is omission and someone who I've obviously shown a lot of shade to on our show, and if you've been a long time listener, is Hassan Whiteside. But looking at the numbers, the guy had a 94 defensive rating last year, blocked almost 4 shots a game, got paid, and I think he's still hungry to prove that he deserves the money that he's got. I think he may be somebody who may average 4 blocks a game this year. Like he legitimately could do that. He's looked amazing in preseason thus far, and I'm very scared for the statistics that he's going to put out and hang on these guys when he goes out here on a regular basis. So I'm not saying he's the favorite, but he's definitely another guy that I think is going to be in strong contention for this award as the season comes up.
Well, one thing that I definitely like about your selection, Shaw, is that he's a stalwart, and he has now an opportunity in Miami to really carve out his name. He is going to be the man down there. He is going to be the front court presence, regardless of whatever happens to Chris Bosh. There's no Luol Deng. They don't really have another great defensive presence, maybe in Justice Winslow, but he will not do what Hassan Whiteside is being asked to do for Eric Spoelstra. And ultimately, if the Miami Heat are going to be a successful basketball team, while it's going to hang on the shoulders of Goran Dragic turning into the Dragon, it's going to come down to Hassan Whiteside chopping down the competition who enters in the lane. So I completely agree with you there. You know, another person that I'm thinking is going to really have an opportunity to step forward is the team that we were just talking about, in which the coach is going to have the Coach of the Year candidacy, Quinn Snyder in the Utah Jazz, and that being Rudy Gobert. I mean, this is an opportunity for him to really make an imprint that he is just not the stifled tower, that he actually can mean a whole lot more to what this Jazz team needs. And I think part of that is if this team does make the playoffs, because they're going to be looking at where their defensive metrics sit amongst the rest of the teams in the NBA. So clearly Rudy Gobert to me is another person that we should closely look at as a Defensive Player of the Year candidate.
Yeah, I have to agree with you there as too. Gobert is definitely not necessarily a sleeper, but somebody that is going to get consideration because he does block shots, he does, deter shots. He's a great rebounder, and has a plus defensive rating as well too, at 98.7. So all those guys, I think the big men have a very good chance at winning the award this year. But I'm going to go ahead and give my prediction, and I'm going to say it's going to be Draymond. And simply because with Kevin Durant on that roster, he doesn't have to even worry about trying to score. Draymond may be scoring, 8 to 10 points a game this year and not worrying about that. He's going to be completely focused on defense that it's going to be ridiculous. And he's going to be standing guys up. He's so versatile, being able to switch and guard guys on the wing as well as guarding guys on the post as well, too. I think that mindset of his is going to change a little bit and give him the opportunity to win that award.
Listen, before I give you my prediction, Shaw, I want to throw out 2 possible wild cards. I consider them mini conspiracy theory type of selections, but I'll call them wild cards. My first wild card is someone who I think like, hey, did we not forget that this was the same dude who took the responsibility of guarding LeBron James when he was in the Eastern Conference Finals when he was playing with the Miami Heat? Hey, Paul George is back, man. And Paul George is looking to get this Indiana Pacers team to be in contention with the Cleveland Cavaliers. And I'm going to say this. If the Cleveland Cavaliers mess around and allow this Indiana Pacers team to stay toe-to-toe with them in the division, we're going to be looking closely at those critical games in which Paul George is going to play like he needs to play, which is at an MVP level. And part of him being an MVP was the defensive metrics that he took upon with him playing as a two-way player. And he has an opportunity to come back and do that again. And so I like him as a wild card person, someone flying under the radar and doing those things that he was doing prior to that gruesome injury that he suffered. He's shown that he's back. He had that stint early last year where he played like an MVP. I think that this is an opportunity for him to kind of wedge his way in and talk as far as when we talk about the Indiana Pacers. If they're going to be a serious contention, it has to be predicated on Paul George getting back to playing that two-way defensive way that he's always been. And my other wild card, how about Jay Crowder for the Boston Celtics? We're talking about Brad Stevens and the imprint that he's had on this basketball team. And we're saying the Boston Celtics, the only way that they're going to really be a legitimate threat is this team playing good defensively. The reason why this team has really been as good as they've been is Jay Crowder. He's been carrying a defensive rating of 104.2 the last 3 seasons, holding the opposition to 32% three-point shooting, over 250 steals and 81 blocks in the 3 seasons. If the Boston Celtics play overachieve ball, They may not have anybody that's going to be an MVP candidate. They may not have a sixth man of the year, but they could have a dark horse runner when you look at what Jay Crowder can do, because he's playing at that kind of position that where, like I said before, the two-way player that you look at closely, he can catch some eyes there. So I consider him as a wild card as far as possible defensive player of the year candidacy.
Yeah, I like them both. I think Crowder's somebody who's no longer underrated. People understand what he does and the value he brings to a roster. And Paul George, he hung his hat on defense coming into his career to begin with. His offensive role has expanded so wildly that that's where I kind of determine. That's kind of why I'm not picking Kawhi as well. I think both those guys have to do more offensively, and they may not say forget about defense, but they're not going to be able to focus and be as good as they have been in previous seasons. George, maybe that would be contrary because they have a little bit more help offensively. So maybe he does do that. I like that, maybe a little bit more than the Crowder selection. But either way, I think all these guys are going to be in the top 10 when it comes to the consideration of this award. But who are you going with ultimately, man?
Ultimately, man, I'm going with the guy you throw shade to, Hassan Whiteside, man. And the reason why I'm saying that is because the problem that I have with Draymond Green winning it is if the Golden State Warriors are going to be as good as we are talking about, when the hell is he really going to have time to be able to do that when he's basically sitting on the bench in the third and fourth quarter of most of these games? Whereas with Hassan Whiteside, I think he's essentially going to be required throughout the whole season because that whole Southeast division is completely up for grabs. And I just feel like if Hassan is going to continue to do the type of things he's done in the last two seasons, he's going to have so many opportunities to have these ridiculous multi-block games and things like that, and rebounds going to be out the wazoo. I just feel like he's just going to put himself in a much better position. And if with Draymond Green, he may not necessarily worry about it. I think the murmurs and the churmurs are going to be Draymond Green is deserving of it because the Golden State Warriors just clearly are that dominant team. I just wonder if they're going to be that great defensively because they certainly weren't as great as they were last year. So it's going to be more individually looked at. I look at what Hassan Whiteside is going to have to do if he doesn't play the way that he should be playing, which is going to have to be a defensive player of the year effort. The Miami Heat really give themselves no chance to even to be in contention, not just for the division, but possibly even to make the playoffs.
Well, I'm going to throw shade to the very end. So although I gave Whiteside his props in terms of he'll definitely be in the consideration, I think because of Green's versatility, I think that's why he's going to win the award. Whiteside is going to put up absolutely gaudy numbers. You're going to see him average 12, 13 rebounds. You're going to see him average 3.5 to 4 blocks a game, maybe even throwing a steal there as well, too. But statistics do not make an award, or does not the entire, case for an award. And I think when you see Green and his versatility being able to guard wing guys and being able to guard, some of the bigs out there as well, too, in the games that I guess Golden State keeps it close, you'll definitely see, Green getting his just due. So I think they probably finished 1 and 2, but I'm got to go with my guy and put Whiteside on the bench for the right now.
Damn, man, you got to throw a whole eclipse on my shade, man. I just had a palm tree hanging over the beach, bro, and you just
wouldn't be me.
You just absolutely
wouldn't be me if I wasn't hating on
You just
Whiteside.
absolutely blacked me out. Just talk about blacking out Hassan White. Hey, listen, Hassan, I tried to show you some love there, brother. I tried to do that. You're tuned to The Baseline. Khalid, Warren Shaw discussing the hot button topics of the NBA, our 2016-17 NBA awards preview and predictions. We discuss all of the possible. We discuss the awards for this upcoming season and who are the possible candidates to walk away with the trophy. All right, Shaw, let's go ahead and move on to most improved player. Listen, man, there is a litany of players, man, that really could be considered for this. There's so many guys that we can look into, and a lot of it is based on the fluctuation of what's happened in this offseason. It's a complete domino effect. There are some players who I really think have a true opportunity to take some serious strides, but ultimately, I think it's going to come down to whoever's most improved to help their team be in the best position to do what they have yet to have accomplished, I think is going to dictate the winner of this award.
Yeah, this award is funny to me, too, because it's not always about somebody who went and worked in the offseason and just got so much better. Sometimes it's just about opportunity, and minutes. And I think in the case of a guy like CJ McCollum last year, he was always good. But now he was a starting shooting guard as a result of Wesley Matthews moving on, and that allowed him to go ahead and capture the award. So for me, I like it in terms of trying to do it at its base and at its core in terms of someone who actually just got better overall. But I really do feel like this award usually goes to somebody who gets the most opportunity moving forward.
Yeah, man. And there's a couple of guys that stand out to me who I really think have an opportunity to come in and just have some serious impact. The one first person that I think that comes to mind. I'm sure you will agree with this. Dennis Schroeder for the Atlanta Hawks.
Oh,
This
yeah.
is his opportunity to shine, and he could not have a better opportunity to do it because the game plan is laid out for him. This guy does not have to come out and score 17, 18, 20 points a game like CJ McCollum did for the Portland Trailblazers. I mean, you think about it, Damian Lillard was their scorer. They needed a secondary scorer. They struggled to get that after LaMarcus Aldridge left. So that fell on the responsibilities of CJ McCollum, and kudos to Terry Stotts for putting him in a position to do it. But if you're Dennis Schroeder, you still have Paul Millsap. You've now inherited Dwight Howard, who is a walking double-double as long as he stays healthy and happy and isn't walking around with a smiley face upside down. You literally have two guys that can give you at least double digits in assists by the time the season ends. This could be one of those situations where he just needs to score 10 points per game and probably average somewhere around like 8, 9, 10 possible assists per night. And I think he could essentially walk away with the award because the Atlanta Hawks, again, this division in the Southeast, every single game is going to be critical. I think it's going to come down to the final games to put this team in a position to make the playoffs. And if they do make the playoffs, you probably will be looking at Dennis Schroeder as being the most improved player.
Yeah, man, go ahead. Way to steal my thunder there, guy. But absolutely.
Did I just do that? Oh,
yeah, man,
shoot.
A little bit. But it's cool, though, because, again, I have to agree. Schroeder is, with the opportunity that's been given to him, he has, a great per 36-minute average where he does average a double-double. And I think this opportunity that he's going to be having in Atlanta right now is definitely going to put him at the forefront of things when it comes to this award specifically. So, I'm not going to go ahead and give away my pick just yet, but that's definitely one of the guys I wanted to discuss because so much is going to be riding on his shoulders this year, especially in Atlanta. Another guy that I'm thinking about is Nikola Jokic over in Denver. He looked amazing at the Olympics, and I think this is an opportunity for him too. Now the year under Coach Malone, and I think they're going to be feeding him the ball a little bit because they realize that he has the offensive capability, to be a juggernaut, and he can be a plus rebounder as well. D'Angelo Russell, who Oliver Maroney mentioned on our show, I think that is somebody who is probably going to be maybe in the top 3 candidacy when it comes to this award.
Ice water in his veins.
There's no doubt he is a man on a mission, as you said, ice water in the veins. He's looking to prove that he's worthy of the draft selection that he got a season ago. And where some people were knocking him from his immaturity, he seems to have taken a step and understand that he needs to be better.
I feel like he can easily be like the Odell Beckham of the NBA, bro.
Yeah,
I really do.
Yeah, a little quirky.
And I'm gonna fall. Let me also say I don't want to steal your thunder about bringing up D'Angelo Russell because you kind of like stole mine when you brought his name because I had him listed. But let me put this in his proper perspective. Did I not say that D'Angelo Russell? I liked the Los Angeles Lakers selecting him in the draft. And where everybody was basically telling me to kick rocks about this is exactly the reason why I said it's critical that if you're the Los Angeles Lakers, you get someone that is going to eventually lead this team. And ultimately, having Luke Walton as a head coach, I think D'Angelo Russell has an opportunity to do some great things in the Los Angeles Lakers uniform. So kick rocks, everyone else now.
No, you're 100% correct. And on my website, shawsports.net, one of our great new contributors, Ashley Douglas, she just wrote an article about D'Angelo Russell and what he's going to be doing this potential season under Luke Walton's tutelage, if you will. And everyone is high on this guy. You've seen two really explosive preseason games from Russell where he's 30 and 10, those types of numbers out there. I mean, that's just insane. And we'd be remiss in not mentioning him as a definite consideration for this award moving forward. Other guys I think Karl Anthony Towns is going to get a couple votes. I think he's good. So it's going to be hard for him to win the award, but he'll definitely get some votes because I think under Thibodeau, as we mentioned a little bit earlier, the Minnesota Timberwolves are going to be a better team. And then my 2 final guys, and I'm talking about way back in the race, the dark horses, Terry Rozier and actually Wesley Matthews from the Dallas Mavericks. I think Matthews coming back, having another year under his belt, being in that system and recovering from his previous injury. I think Matthews is going to have a lot to prove this year too. So those are my dark horse candidates, Rozier and Matthews.
Man, my wild horse is. First of all, there's one person who I don't think has been discussed, but I really think that he now has a prime opportunity to really explode and have really a great season at the expense, unfortunately, of one of his comrades' injuries. How about Jabari Parker? Last season, Jabari Parker, at the end of last season, I mean, he came on. I mean, you can kind of see that symbiotic relationship with him and with Giannis Antetokounmpo. And now with with MCW gone, I really think that this direction that the Bucks are taking with Antetokounmpo really running that point forward, I think Jabari Parker is going to be the recipient of doing some damage, especially regardless of what happens with Greg Monroe. I just feel like Jabari Parker has an opportunity to really explode as long as he is fully recovered from the ACL injury. And I really think that that's what happened to him the second half of last season. But my dark horse candidates, Devin Booker, Harrison Barnes, Miles Turner, and Steven Adams. And a lot of people are throwing out Kristaps Porzingis, but I'm not buying the hype in Kristaps. I really think that he's going to be an adequate player, but he's not going to do nearly as well enough to be in the considerations of most improved player. The one person that I really feel like is deserving to be a most improved player, but is again going to get shafted by the management and whatever's going on out there is Devin Booker. This guy is going to be a monster, and I feel like again, the roster and the way that the teams are structured, the way the team is structured, is going to deprive them of the opportunity, our pleasure and our enjoyment to watch. You know what I'm saying? This dude book on everybody as like how he was doing in the summer league, man. I just feel like during the course of the season, he's just not going to be in the best position to be that most improved guy. Even though I really think like his game translates that he should be a most improved player candidate.
Well, how does it go when you think about these guys and all these rookies potentially? You know what I mean? All these rookies from a season ago now being thrown into the conversation as most improved players. I mean, that just goes to show you how great that draft class was last year, that they can really now, be considered, most improved as a result of opportunity and a result of more minutes and things like that too. I love the Booker selection. I love the Miles Turner selection as well too. But I'm going to go ahead and give my prediction as a winner, and you stole it originally. And it has to be Dennis Schroeder.
I didn't really steal it. Well, man, you know what I'm saying? I just kind of laid out the groundwork. You know what I'm saying? It was the preface of the book. All right.
Yeah, I'm gonna let you ride on that. But yeah, Schroeder, to me, I just feel like with that opportunity in Atlanta, nobody really challenging him for minutes on a regular basis. Jared Jack is a great backup, but he's not going to be ready to begin the season. Schroeder's going to have all the opportunity to make mistakes and do what he needs to do on a regular basis out there. So that's going to be my pick for the most improved player in the NBA this year.
I'm gonna go out on a limb, man, and I'm gonna say it's D'Angelo Russell. I really feel like, and I'm not saying it because I'm all.
That's not a limb.
I'm on this bromance with D'Angelo Russell because I thought it was a good selection by the Los Angeles Lakers to pick him, in third in the draft. The reason why I think D'Angelo Russell is going to be the most improved player is because when you look at what he was already doing, minus the immaturity, to me, where are they going to find their absolute go-to player? I just feel like the Los Angeles Lakers, when they are going to be competitive in basketball games, he's going to be given opportunities to give people those awe-inspiring moments, those moments that are going to be blowing up on Twitter, blowing up on Facebook, and he's just going to get a lot more love and shine because he's in the Los Angeles market. And if he does what he does, he will be hype machine personified and can very easily be a guy who can score 15 to 20 points per game and have some grandiose moments that will give that type of that give us that reasoning to justify him being a most improved player of the year. So to me, I see it as being D'Angelo Russell. So
yeah, I can see it. I can see it. I think he may even have better overall statistics. But the only caveat is Atlanta's obviously going to be a better team than the Lakers are too. So if they take winning to any type of consideration this war, that's going to give my guy the edge. That's all I'm saying.
Listen, I can already see the headlines though. Taming of the shooter. There it is. Taming of the shooter. You're tuned to The Baseline. Khalid, Warren Shaw discussing the hot button topics of the NBA, our 2016-17 NBA preview, NBA awards preview and predictions as we keep it moving forward. All right, the Kia Sixth Man of the Year. Now, when I say Kia Sixth Man of the Year, is this supposed to be for some endorsement? Is like this is how we're supposed to properly announce this award?
Yeah,
is the Kia Sixth Man. You know what I'm saying? Like we're not doing this for the other awards, right? Defensive Player of the Year, you know what I mean? Or for Rookie of the Year. This Kia Sixth Man of the Year. Are we obligated to have to put Kia ahead of the Sixth Man of the Year?
Kia ain't paying us, so we ain't got to do nothing.
All right, so Sixth Man of the Year award.
100.
You know what I'm saying? First of all, I'm a little salty with them using one of my favorite video games, Tecmo Bowl, and putting out that cheesy commercial with one of my favorite athletes, Bo Jackson, and the Boz. Do you see? Did you see that
I
commercial?
did see that commercial.
I mean, what?
Yeah, it's like,
Yeah, listen, what kind of nonsense is that? Listen, man, I'm really getting tired of advertisement companies getting paid buku bucks to put garbage, you know what I'm saying, in between my favorite shows. That Tecmo Bowl commercial, pure trash. Okay,
tough.
pure trash. So
People
at
just want to
least
see both, though.
listen, at least if anything, the only thing I'm giving Kia credit for is they're putting sponsorship next to a good award. Nevertheless, for the Baseline NBA podcast, this is the Sixth Man of the Year award. All right, and so Shaw, who do you got lined up to be candidates for the Sixth Man of the Year award?
Well, this was one of the questions we put out on Twitter, and shout out to everybody who responded. Chris Reichert responded and gave us a name. Jay Siskin out there responded, gave us a name too. Reichert said Brandon Jennings, Siskert said Brandon Knight and Eric Gordon as potential award winners. Dion Waiters got some consideration. Mari Hazonia got some consideration. Year the Big Man by Ryan Mowbray. He said Zebo potentially now that he's coming off the bench in Memphis. Big Al in Indiana has an opportunity, and maybe even Greg Monroe if he were to move to the bench in Milwaukee, which I think they have been using Monroe off the bench in the preseason as well too. So those are some great names that I heard out there. Eric Gordon, Brandon Knight, and Brennan Jennings really stand out to me as guys who could potentially win this award going into this upcoming season.
Yeah, there's a couple of those are some excellent names. All right, first and foremost, and it's just kind of surprising to me, Shaw, because usually the names that always wind up being thrown out there, Jamal Crawford, obviously, and even maybe Andre Iguodala to some level and degree. I feel like Andre Iguodala may get some considerations. This is going to be difficult because I really just think it comes down to how Steve Kerr utilizes him. I felt like it was more because of the lack of experience with Harrison Barnes, which was why he was so essential. And then also maintaining the health for guys like Steph Curry and for Klay Thompson. But clearly, I think Steve Kerr has more confidence in using Sean Livingston and how he brings Andre Iguodala in to give spell to his small forward, power forward positions and the flexibility with his starting lineup. So I feel like Andre Iguodala is always a deserving and should always be in that running for Sixth Man of the Year. But I just feel like the way that he kind of is being used from a numbers perspective always seems to take himself out of the running. The Eric Gordon selection, man, really interesting, right? Yeah. Really interesting. Because the thing that I fear about this is, what if D'Antoni feels like he should be using Eric Gordon as the starting two, right? Like, so that's going to be tough. But I really feel like, where do the Houston Rockets go to once they sit James Harden down? So, maybe that might be the way. Like, maybe this relationship with Gordon and Harden might not work in the season, and D'Antoni might have to pull that move. But I've always seen Eric Gordon as that kind of guy where, because he just can't hold his own as a starter, he just doesn't stay healthy enough. But if you put him out there in certain spurts, he could be an explosive basketball player. So as a sixth-man consideration, I can completely see it there. One guy who I really think stands out, has an opportunity to shine, I think, is Enes Kanter. I feel like he's going to be so needed for this Oklahoma City Thunder, because while the scoring burden is going to rest on not just Victor Oladipo, but also Russell Westbrook, they're really going to need they're going to need somebody to dominate. And Enes Kanter has proven over the last couple of seasons that nobody can manhandle the second units better in the big position than Enes Kanter. You know what I'm saying? So he could actually give himself a really good chance at running for this Sixth Man of the Year award.
No, again, the year of the big man was really it's one of the guys that Ryan had mentioned. Zebo, Kanter, Big Al, and Monroe were the four names that he mentioned, and I'm right on board with that. I think this is going to be one of the more competitive races throughout the season because so many different guys are going to have different opportunities. Zebo was really interesting to me because got a chance to jump on the Memphis talk show the other day with our guys Josh, and you look at that situation and it seemed like all doom and gloom initially, like, oh, Zebo's not going to be a starter anymore. How could they do this to him? But Zebo's a little bit older. Now he's going to get to come in and feast on those lineups of those second units, and he still has a lot to give. So he can really go out there and be productive in minutes coming off the bench, and then he'll be one of the guys that finishes the game more than likely in all scenarios from Memphis as well too. So I like those guys as selections. Eric Gordon, like you said, is very, very interesting. He may get plus minutes as a starter as well too, so that may prohibit him. So the guys that I'm really looking at right now are Zebo, Brandon Jennings, and Brandon Knight, and I'm stuck between those three guys, man. Who do you got though overall?
Well, before you do that, Shaw, my one last wild card. What about J.R. Smith? 45 million reasons for him to be that sixth man of the year. And I feel like if the situation plays itself out the way it does, because I think Tyronn Lue is going to give Iman Shumpert a lot of leniency. I think he's deserving to be really the starting two guard. I think J.R. Smith has found his calling. Come off the bench and basically adopt that 2 tiers in a bucket, chuck it mentality. And so to me, that's what you want. You want your guy chucking and getting buckets. And so that could easily catapult him to be the sixth man of the year, and deservedly so, because he's going to be playing on a basketball team that can seriously put him in that situation almost every single night playing with the Cleveland Cavaliers.
Yeah, but for me, JR still, he's a starter. He was starting, in the finals. I don't think just because he got a late start to training camp that even if he doesn't start the first couple of games of the regular season, I don't think that he'll be coming off the bench too long. They want him to be the starting guy and Shumpert to come in and relieve him or LeBron on a regular basis.
See, why they got to mess up a good thing, man? See, listen, why they got to mess up a good... J.R. Smith, listen, man, J.R. Smith came off the bench in the second half of Game 7 of the NBA Finals. What did he do? Helped them score the first 10 points to put them in a position to pull off the upset of the upset. You don't mess with that kind of karma, bro. You just don't.
I can agree with you to some degree. I just feel like that's what they want to do with that right now. And JR, I don't think he wants to be a bench guy, making making all the money that he's making right now, especially coming off the championship. And LeBron as is basically his sponsor and endorser. There's no way that I think he's going to be in a bench role for the majority of the season. So
we need a petition. I'm going to start a petition after this show. J.R. Smith, sixth man. That's it. He doesn't have to be on the bench, but he needs to be the sixth man. Maybe that'd be the best way to do that, right?
Get that Kia sponsor.
All right, so who do you have as the sixth man of the year?
I'm gonna go with Brandon Knight. I think in Phoenix, simply because again that 3-headed monster out there. I think they're gonna be willing to run with that. There's obviously a good possibility that one of those guys gets traded, but as it stands right now, I think you got to find minutes for all of them. Especially with Booker, emerging as well as he is. I think it was Maroney who came on our show as well, said Booker grew a couple inches as well too, so they may run him at the 3 at sometimes. And I feel like offense is definitely gonna be Phoenix's calling card, and Knight's gonna be a big part of that. So I'm hedging my bet a little bit, because I'm Eric Gordon is really intriguing to me. Zebo is very intriguing to me as well, too. But I'm going to go with my original selection of Brandon Knight. What about you?
Yeah, well, listen, I'm going to go with the hype. Brandon Jennings. I mean, if there's anybody who has an opportunity to be clutch where it matters the most, the New York Knicks will find a way to give us a reason to start believing in someone we should have no business believing in. Like, we saw this happen a few years ago when Woodson was the head coach and Carmelo Anthony was the best player on that basketball court, and their second best player was, damn it, J.R. Smith, okay? Coming off the sixth man, right? J.R. Smith was their best man, and they won 55 games. I just feel like Brandon Jennings is due to do the same thing for a New York Knicks team, which collectively looks like a team that should find themselves as a top Eastern Conference type of team, playing in the playoffs. But I really think that Brandon Jennings has the opportunity to let it fly and to do it in the New York market. What better way for you to profile yourself as being as a hoop redemption discussion and also a sixth man of the year type of player? I mean, it's there for the taking. And let's also keep in mind, too, if Derrick Rose goes down to injury, that means Brandon Jennings will have to come in and start. And hopefully it'll only be a temporary injury, but just that in itself adds to the value of Brandon Jennings being deserving of that award. We saw that happen with Jamal Crawford when Chris Paul went down to injury. What catapulted him to winning that sixth man of the year is that he came in and he was really great in helping the Los Angeles Clippers maintain that high level of excellence while he was still being injured.
No, I think that's a great point because Jennings, I said the same thing when they signed him. I said, getting him for $5 million behind Derrick Rose, who has still the rape case still pending out there. Don't know when he's going to be back with the team and all of that. Jennings may get some plus minutes as a starter throughout the season to kind of boost his stats in general, but he's just going to be so immense for them, and he's run the team extremely well in preseason as well too. So I like that selection. Again, I wouldn't be surprised. So either way, we're going with the Brandon, to win this award, either Knight or Jennings. I definitely feel like I feel secure in both of those selections.
And who knows? Maybe Kia might be generous and give him a car to go with that $5 million that he's earning from the New York.
What up, though, Kia?
You know what I'm saying? I mean, I'm just saying. You're tuned to The Baseline. Khalid Warren Shaw discussing the hot button topics of the NBA, our 2016-17 NBA Awards preview and predictions. We got two more to discuss. So let's keep it moving, Shaw. Rookie of the year, the Roy. You know what I'm saying? Trouble T Roy. Big shout outs to Pete Rock and CL Smooth, the classics. No one has done it better. The Rookie of the Year candidacy, man. Listen, a lot has been made about this year's draft class. A couple of guys obviously standing out, and clearly this Roy Award, I kind of like it. No, and not at the expense of saying because Ben Simmons went down to injury. I feel bad about that, but I kind of appreciate the fact that while he goes down while he's recovering from his injuries, probably the better way to put this, we can actually start shedding some light on some guys who really do have an opportunity to do some great things before we just hand out the award to Ben Simmons because he's the heir apparent to LeBron James. Guys like Buddy Hield, Chris Dunn, Joel Embiid technically is going to be a rookie this year, right? So, I mean, there are guys that really should be in the conversation that I think has just as much an opportunity to walk away with this award, regardless of whether or not Ben Simmons would have been fully healthy to play for the Sixers.
Yeah, Ben Simmons going down really opens up this race a lot. And unfortunately, it's not like last year where all these rookies are going to have the same opportunities that they did, a season ago. This year's class is going to struggle for playing time and to some degree, and they're going to have to really earn their minutes in some of their spots. So for me, it really is, as of right now, a 3-horse race. And that's no discredit to anybody who I'm not going to mention, but I agree with you. Joel Embiid has to be, one of the top candidates for this award. And ironically, if Simmons does come back in January, maybe he could push for that award as well too, and they get a 4-horse race. But I got Joel Embiid, I got Chris Dunn from the Minnesota Timberwolves, and I also have Buddy Hield from the New Orleans Pelicans. I just feel like opportunity is going to be huge for them. He may or may not start. Etuan Moore's been starting at the shooting guard position as we record this show, but Hield is definitely going to be a guy that they rely on to shoot the 3-ball and to even do a little bit of playmaking as well too, until Tyreke Evans and if Jrue Holiday comes back. So it's 3-horse race for me, man. Who you got?
Well, listen, I think it's a 3-horse race as well too, but I got a dark horse, man. What about Isaiah? I keep talking about it. What about Isaiah Whitehead? What do the Brooklyn Nets really have to lose, dude? Seriously, we're really going to be talking about Randy Foye and Jeremy Lin as your starting backcourt for the rest of the NBA season. If Isaiah Whitehead gets even a little bit of light down there in Brooklyn and does some amazing things, he could actually give himself an opportunity. I know it's a conspiracy theory. I'm just saying, but look, I know, man. Listen, I know it's lunacy, it's crazy, but I'm just telling you, man, especially in this type of race, because of the fact that if these other rookies tend to struggle, it would be so disappointing to give it to someone that we just weren't completely excited about. Listen, listen, how long have we been excited for Joel Embiid? You know what I'm saying? I feel like the fans should have been given Rookie of the Year nominations for the last 2 years before any of these other guys, because we've been waiting for this Joel Embiid coming for so long. So, Buddy Hield to me I feel like would be the most logical choice, because you're replacing someone that ultimately is going to need to score the basketball, because we really don't know what the point guard situation is truly going to be like. And even though Anthony Davis is the man, I feel like Buddy Hield has an opportunity to just go in there and just light the place up. Okay, he really does. Chris Dunn, great opportunity, but Tom Tibbs, man, sometimes he makes it tough on the rookies to get their love, to get their shine. So just by default, we're already going to be talking about Joel Embiid, unless, like you said, Ben Simmons comes in, and he comes in at a time where we would still validate him as being a Rookie of the Year candidate. But man, if there is ever an opportunity for a rookie to come in and do something where there is absolutely nothing, is if you are playing for the Brooklyn Nets. So let's go, Isaiah Whitehead.
No, I'm gonna let you ride on that one, man.
I'm riding on my own, right? Like I'm actually walking out in Bushwick by myself with this pick, Isaiah Whitehead. Okay, man, all right, I get it.
You're gonna get a lot of love from the BK natives out there, bro. Because again,
I'm probably getting an invite right now from the Marbury family for their family reunion picnic already for the spring. Clearly by making this endorsement. I'm just saying.
Well, Whitehead's gonna owe you an interview after this, man, because that's a lot of love for Isaiah, man. I just don't see coming, But again, I think from a dark horse standpoint, if there was someone who I was gonna pick, it might be Jamal Murray. Garrett Harris being hurt to begin the year. There's an opportunity there too. And if Moutier struggles or struggles with injury as well as too, Murray can slide over to that point guard position where he says he's actually more comfortable. He's been shown the ability and the propensity to be able to shoot the three ball pretty well consistently with NBA range, and I've been impressed by that too. So he's my dark horse. But what does it say about us right now? As we're not talking about the guy who was drafted second in the draft, and that's Brandon Ingram. Buried kind of a little bit on that Lakers bench. He's going to get PT, but he's just not going to be ahead of guys like Julius Randle and Luol Deng. And he may struggle to get consistent minutes on a regular basis. And, to me, I still think he has all the potential in the world to be a great player, but I just don't see him being able to be a contender in this rookie of the year race.
Yeah, listen, I completely agree with you. And let me put it like this. I just think that Brandon Ingram really was going to have a tough opportunity to make his presence felt. In the position that he's playing at. I think that's really what it comes down to. I feel like he was going to struggle. And maybe if let's put it like this. Maybe if D'Angelo Russell had shown what he is probably showing you now last year, there could be a little bit more confidence in putting Brandon Ingram in that position that I think Luke Walton would like to see him at. I just don't think that they saw enough over the summer to feel confident to say, we're going to put him through this, especially playing in the Los Angeles market and having to go through what I think the Los Angeles Lakers are going to have to endure this upcoming season, because they're going to go through their struggles, okay? Just because I'm high on D'Angelo Russell and what this guy is capable of doing doesn't mean that it is going to negate the fact that this Lakers team is going to have a really rough season. So yeah. Brandon Ingram, I think, is going to be part of that calamity damage. And I think part of that damage would not have really increased or would have helped his opportunities of being considered a Rookie of the Year candidacy. Because when I look at Brandon Ingram's game, I don't see where it would translate this spurt of success that I think the Lakers and Luke Walton and them are probably expecting to see from this basketball team. So maybe they're protecting him. And it might be a good thing, because even if you won this Rookie of the Year award, we've seen guys win Rookie of the Year award, and it really means absolutely nothing because their game and whatever they did to put themselves in this position has not translated to them ultimately being the superstars that we thought that they would be. And I would rather see Brandon Ingram's game grow to something where in the next couple of years he becomes that legitimate force playing on a team where everything that he does is valued, the way it ought to.
Yeah, I think that's an excellent question that we were talking about a little bit earlier on Twitter as well, too. Regards to MCW. He was a Rookie of the Year just a couple of years ago.
Right.
And now he's, almost a journeyman-like player and is going to be a backup point guard on the Chicago Bulls behind Rajon Rondo. Tyreek Evans was another guy that somebody mentioned when we were having the discussion. It's like, okay, listen, a guy who averaged 25-5 to begin his rookie season.
And he's never came close to that.
And has lived up to it, too. So, not winning or not being in the conversation for Rookie of the Year doesn't mean your career is going to be great or isn't going to be great. And winning the Rookie of the Year doesn't mean that you're going to be good, in the years to follow. So Brandon Ingram just needs to hang in there. Laker fans, don't worry about it. And again, and it does all it would take is an injury for him to go out there and get some more minutes on a regular basis. Something to happen to Randall or Luol Deng in that situation, maybe he goes out there and gets some plus minutes. But no offense to him, it's just we don't see him in the running right now. But to move on, I'm definitely going to say, for my pick, it is going to be Buddy Hield. I think that wins this award. Again, I think just opportunity there is just too great for him to not get to be in consideration for this. The minutes are going to be so heavy for him, especially to begin the year, because of a guy like Tyreek Evans not beginning the year, and Drew Holiday as well too. They have to rely on this guy to get minutes and to be able to produce on a regular basis. And he's shown the ability to do so far in preseason. So that's what I'm going with. I'm going with the Bahamian, Buddy Hield, for Rookie of the Year.
Yeah, nice. You got to take it to the islands, my youth.
Take it to the islands.
Yeah. Listen, I'm going to agree with you because I'm not buying into Joel Embiid. I don't know why. I just feel like I think he is an adequate center and probably will be an adequate center in the NBA if he stays healthy. I feel like he's a Greg Oden in waiting almost. And I think that will be the ultimate disappointment. So if you're the Philadelphia 76ers, really hang your hat on having Ben Simmons. But I think Buddy Hield has the opportunity to really take this Rookie of the Year. There's so much that's going to be required for the Pelicans to be competitive. And I think that Alvin Gentry has an offensive system that is going to allow Buddy Hield to have some shine. Barring anything crazy with the Minnesota Timberwolves, it's just going to be difficult for me to see Chris Dunn getting the opportunity to play on that kind of level that's going to be required to win a Rookie of the Year award. Albeit, though, listen, we've seen the award be given by default because of the success of a team. So maybe Chris Dunn playing like that 6th man of the year type or whatever the case may be could very much put himself in that conversation. It'd just be hard pressed for me to see that because I just don't see the minutes in his favor to do it. So I'm going to agree with you there. Buddy Hield is going to walk away as the Rookie of the Year. All right, Shaw, let's talk about the final award. It's the big daddy of them all, the MVP. Big shout out to Big L. He coined the phrase so lovely in hip hop. But the MVP award, listen, there's a lot of names being thrown out there. Clearly, this could be the year for James Harden. Will he finally get that shine, get that opportunity? Russell Westbrook, you know what I'm saying? The Maverick, the Fury, I call him, the Furian. It's basically for the taking. Who do you see, man? Who do you see really stepping up? And who's their opportunity for the NBA to endow them to be the MVP?
Yeah, again, this is a fun conversation, I think, for all people to always have, throughout the season and going into the season as it approaches, because there's a lot of guys out there on great teams, and some, even to the conversation that we had earlier, have taken themselves out of the conversation because of their track record of success already. So I think guys like Curry and Durant, they're going to be out on the outside looking in. They have them as probably 6 and 7 overall in my top 5 right now. And I'm going to give you my top 5 without, giving away the actual prediction.
Top 5, dead or alive. Here we go.
I got Russell Westbrook, James Harden. I got Paul George. I got LeBron James, and I got Kawhi Leonard as my top 5 candidates, for the MVP award this year. And, the conversation on all these guys is very interesting. With LeBron, he's always an MVP candidate. To me, he's still the best player in the NBA, and until otherwise, until he retires, he's probably going to be that for me. And then, as you mentioned, with Westbrook and Harden, just opportunity for them to really just go out there and run amok, just do whatever it is that they need to do. Statistically, you're going to see some immense numbers from these guys, high turnovers for sure, but some multiple triple doubles, throughout the year. They'll be going back and forth, and that's going to be something to watch throughout. And I think with Kawhi Leonard, man, and Paul George, just Paul George looking to take his team to that next level, and Kawhi Leonard now stepping in and being the leader of this team post Duncan. I think you're going to see Kawhi average 20+ points, 7+ rebounds, 2+ steals, a block a game, things like that too, being that two-way player that he always has been, really stepping into his own and making a run at this thing. So those are my top 5 candidates.
Yeah, the top 5 that I have, Shaw, James Harden, Russell Westbrook, Kevin Durant. Okay. In a moment, I'll give you my explanation why. LeBron James, Paul George, and Kawhi Leonard, no question. I think that when you look at this list realistically to me kind of spearheads, so many variations over the last few years of what we think and what we feel is considered and deserving to be in a conversation and what's the discussion for MVP. So to fall back on why I would consider Kevin Durant as an MVP is this is going to be a different situation for Kevin Durant. I don't think that he's not going to do what he does where his scoring title, he's going to be scoring 30-something points per game. And I really think it's going to be the all-around play. If the Golden State Warriors get back to playing the kind of defense that they had done a couple of years ago, I really feel like this type of team, Kevin Durant's defensive efforts can flourish, and he can adequately be one of the best all-around players that I think everyone was asking him to be in 2012 and up to last year when they made that run in the Western Conference Finals and were one game away from beating the Golden State Warriors. I think that a little bit of what Kevin Durant should be and is needing to be at this stage in his career, he has an opportunity to become if we're talking about in an MVP scope. And that, to me, I think is what would draw some of those considerations. Plus the fact that he's going to be lighting it up. And just that in itself, if the Warriors are going to be one of the top 5 teams in there, yeah, you could put it's not like we don't have multiple guys being considered for MVP. Listen, you can make the argument Kyrie Irving could be considered an MVP candidate this year if he's going to play the kind of way that he played at the end of last year in the postseason run and up to winning the NBA championship. So it would be a foregone conclusion if Kevin Durant and Steph Curry would be considered as MVPs again for this upcoming season. I just feel more him being an MVP because his overall game, I think, is going to have an opportunity to flourish. And I think that defensive side, which people find to be his his weakness, he's going to have an opportunity to put a little emphasis on, to put a stamp on, be one of the better all-around players for a team that's going to be one of the most dominant in the NBA.
I can't argue with that. I don't have any qualms with Durant or Curry being mentioned in the conversation.
But it doesn't mean that they're going to win, though. It doesn't mean that they're going to win.
I just feel like they're going to cancel themselves out.
Exactly.
And same thing. They're not going to have to do as much as either one of them had to do respectively on their teams before joining forces. And that definitely opens things up for some of these other guys out there too. So for me, it's looking like Harden and Westbrook at the top of that race. And I think only because the love for Westbrook has definitely changed as a result of Durant going to Golden State, that's going to give him the edge. There's a lot of people have been talking recently about, Harden doesn't play defense, et cetera, and Westbrook isn't the greatest defender himself. But I feel like, the whole narrative of OKC, kind of being his team now, and if he can get that team into the playoffs and be, a 5 or 6 seed in the Western Conference, that'll allow him to kind of take home and complete the year with this award, simply because he's going to get the sentimental vote. And Harden, again, the numbers are going to be there, but I just feel like he's just not liked enough, in the media space, and then even from the fan standpoint too, where he's going to get the credit he probably deserves in this. So for me, it's Russ and Harden 1 and 2, but I think Russ goes ahead and takes it.
I really feel like Russell Westbrook is going to wind up being the MVP because there are just so many statistics in which Russell Westbrook now has the opportunity to flourish without having Kevin Durant kind of absorbing some of that shine that he's going to have the chance to do. And even if he's playing next to Victor Oladipo, I think in ways Victor Oladipo will actually enhance what Russell Westbrook should ultimately be able to achieve. Whereas I'm still questioning where this is all going to happen for James Harden. A lot of it to me is going to be predicated on guys making shots. Are you really going to rely on Eric Gordon doing that consistently, Ryan Anderson doing it, Trevor Ariza doing that? I just feel like there are more abilities for Russell Westbrook to beef up assists, the opportunity from a defensive perspective for him to get the number of steals. Remember Steph Curry last year, the NBA leader in steals. I feel like Russell Westbrook now has that opportunity to achieve that same goal because he's got a Klay Thompson next to him and Victor Oladipo. So a lot of the numbers that I think helped Steph Curry, aside from jacking up and making over 400 three-pointers and putting up those type of record numbers, not from a records perspective, but just every single statistical facet that we are enamored by to give a person an MVP award, I feel like Russell Westbrook has the better pieces around him to facilitate him achieving that more efficiently and more dynamically than I will see Harden. But without the effort, though, because I know how you and your girl like to be talking about anyone else but Harden not winning this dang thing is pure rubbish. Harden will definitely make the race interesting because he is due to explode this season.
Yeah.
Our girl Benny, of course, is who I'm talking about for our NBA listeners.
No 100. Yeah, man. But like I said, I don't see how it's not that. If we're going to throw a dark horse into this, you can maybe throw in Anthony Davis, maybe throw in Karl Anthony
John Wall, maybe.
Yeah, coming way back. But to me, it really is those two guys for this season. And again, statistically, they're going to be putting up some numbers that we haven't seen in terms of averaging triple doubles and things like that, barring injury, of course. But again, the efficiency may get thrown out the window. Like I said earlier, the turnovers will be high, but you buckle up, man. It's going to be a crazy ride.
Can you imagine what the pricing for these dudes are going to be on DraftKings and FanDuel on the fantasy dockets? It's on a nightly basis. It's just like, seriously. I mean, the whole fantasy free world will collapse, literally. Like it will not even be fair. Like they'll have to shut down the free market for fantasy because of what these guys are going to cost.
Yeah, there's no doubt. I mean, and again, you'd be remiss in not taking at least one of them if they're playing. And if you can get both of them in your lineup, then a bunch of scrubs at the bottom, I think you go ahead and do it because they're going to be producing, the worth. 2 guys will probably give you the production of 4 guys, and they're going to be well worth every dollar on DraftKings and FanDuel for all the listeners out there. And, our guy Josh Lloyd said as much as on our fantasy show. These guys are poised for immense years. So how can they not potentially be MVP candidates?
Yeah, definitely, man. Well, there you have it, guys, ladies and gentlemen, listeners all around. those are our selections for this year's NBA awards. Be sure to check out www.shawsports.net. My man Shaw, I'm sure, will be posting our predictions, and definitely we want to get your responses. So be sure to hit us up on at NBA Baseline and let us know what you think of who we are looking at, our dark horses and wild cards. And ultimately, this is obviously it's for fun, but it definitely will make for an exciting upcoming NBA season. And I think it's just absolutely fabulous, Shaw, breaking down all of these guys and looking at their dynamics and why we should be considering them for all of these awards. I think it's just absolutely awesome. It just makes for some great storylines that we need to be looking forward to for this upcoming season, man.
Yeah, amazing conversation for all our fans and listeners. And, let us know who we missed. Who do we not talk about, your favorite player or some of your favorite coaches even, that should be considered for the awards that we discussed, man. Because, again, this is an open-ended conversation, and it could fluctuate throughout the year. I'm sure we'll do something mid-season at All-Star break, and then we'll do something right at the end of the season to kind of see where we stood, come April, looking back now as we record the show in October, how close were we to getting some of these things right. So make sure you tune in, make sure you check us out, and hit us up on Twitter and Instagram with some of your selections as well, guys.
And by the way, we want to send our apologies to all of our Jeremy Lin fans. We tried to find a way to put him in the conversation for one of these awards. We really we were inching so close to Defensive Player of the Year, but I just didn't see that. It was a hard sell for me, Shaw. It was a tough sell. It was a tough sell.
You already gave BK some love with Isaiah Whitehead, so Lin doesn't get anything. But you know what? We can give him the Man Bun of the Year award. How about that?
The Phantom Layup of the Year.
God.
Listen, man, we got to bring back gas face plays of the week, bro. We're gonna have to do that because I mean, Jeremy Lin had already been at the top of my list. I already had my third base gas face ready to go for Jeremy Lin for blowing that layup, dude. So, but nonetheless, it will happen. We shall make it so. So I want to thank Jeremy Lin for revitalizing, reinvigorating the desire for us to bring back the gas face plays of the week. We got to get back to doing that, bro.
Well, I'm with you, man. And again, shout out to you, man. That's 3 old school hip hop references in this show. I don't know if everyone's been paying attention. We got Pete Rock and CL Smooth, Big L, and now we got third base with the gas face. All heads out there, man. Hope you're loving this banter.
This is a once in a lifetime moment. I don't know whether or not this will happen. I listen. I have Alzheimer's. I don't know what's going to happen for me next. But if I do this again, just relish in it. Cherish it, embrace it, live in the moment with Cal Game Facely.
I'm with you, man. I'm with you. Let's go.
Listen, we appreciate you and yours. Once again, be sure to go to fanessentials.net. Get your gear ready for this upcoming NBA season. Fanessentials.net, $14.99, $34.99 are the prices. Get 30% off at checkout using the baseline at the promo code. Don't go without having your gear ready for this exciting upcoming NBA season. For the baseline, Callie, Warren Shaw, we appreciate you guys. You know we do. And we'll catch up with you next time.